Deep Sani is a security analyst and he joins us via Zoom. Mr. Sani, so the police and the Electoral Commission were commended after a smooth running of the polls on December 7 itself. But did they do enough to prevent the violence during the collation?
Well, Daniel, it is an incontrovertible fact that this is perhaps one of the, if not the most well-organized elections in Ghana since the inception of the Fourth Republic. As a matter of fact, a lot of work went into it. We all played a major role as civil society. Different levels were engaged by different actors. We've been around the country to get as many people as involved in the process. But you see, Daniel, if you study critically the security mechanisms that were deployed before and during the elections, trust me, it was by the book. It was crisp, and it is the National Election Security Task Force did almost everything that it had to do so far as security is concerned. The unfortunate thing is we seem not to have had a post-election security strategy, because I understand that immediately after the election, all officers who were deployed, over 63,000, were asked to return to base. And I think almost all of them were given 1 or 2 days leave. The erroneous belief that so far as the election is over, everything is going to be normal. But you see, from my years of practice and study and research into election security in sub-Saharan Africa, from Kenya to Ivory Coast to Nigeria in 2003, Zimbabwe, Uganda, etc., I've come to one realization. The most precarious of all times of the 3 election security stages is post-election, because that is when the counting happens. That is when contentious issues come up, with some people crying foul, with some people becoming frustrated about the whole process and might want to vent their frustration through belligerent means. So I expected that the security would rather be enhanced after the election. Unfortunately, we let our guards down. We went to sleep, and it was a free-for-all. That is why we're experiencing all of that is happening. I think it's a dereliction of duty. And if we had maintained the security protocols, we would have been able to prevent some of these violence from even happening.
Now, you are often quoted as saying, Mr. Sani, that everywhere is a hot spot, but we did see the security agencies earmark specific places where they should pay more attention. Techiman South was not among them. This is what we are told. Is this another error on the side of the police?
Well, I remember I was on your show recently, and we spoke about Yagaba Kubori, which actually is not also a hotspot. But the IGP was very categorical on his 4th November press conference that all areas are going to be treated as hotspots. You see, a lot goes into it. Apart from the intelligence that is sourced from the area, we look at the history of violence of that area. And we also have other partners. We have different institutions like my alma mater, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center, and even WANEP, ECOWAS and all that, establishing what we call early warning signs. That also feeds into the determination of whether an area is a hotspot or not. So I wouldn't say it's an error, because security is dynamic. It is a process. It's not an event. Things change when you least expect. But what you should rather be doing is to put certain mechanisms in place, so when some of these things change, it is not going to hit you as a shock, but you would have the mechanisms deployed to mitigate its effect. Unfortunately, that is not exactly what we saw in this situation. But of particular concern to me is the issue of accountability. Daniel, when there's no accountability, we would only be succeeding in doing one thing and one thing only: bastardizing, throwing to the bin the civil security relations, which is extremely critical so far as the management of security of the state is concerned. I can see bitter people. I can see bitter families. These are not just numbers. These are human beings, for crying out loud. So we cannot afford to make it look like, oh, it's one of those things and that's it. And it's particularly peculiar with the security services in Ghana. I remember some years ago, a gentleman was beaten by the police somewhere around Kofom in Kumasi. He died. And the autopsy report said he died of a heart attack. But what happened before the heart issues came up? So you see, when things happen this way, it distorts. It creates some kind of a discord between the people and the security services. Right. Trust me, without the people taking part in the security management process, the police, the military, the immigration, none of them would be able to effectively live up to their mandate. And that, I must say, is dangerous. It is time the police take this as a window of opportunity to investigate all that happened. I've been following Joy News. I saw you do a comprehensive reporting on even the police officer holding the gun, the trajectory, where he pointed the gun at him firing and all that. Even if the police cannot do it, they can rely on the media to give them some of these information, the footage. And that could help to a very large extent in uncovering what really happened.
Right. Mr. Sani, so you make three very important points. The first being there was a weakening of the security protocols post the election. The second being it's possible Techiman South police officers were not prepared for what happened. And the third being that police must be held accountable. But my question is, should this accountability be extended to the hierarchy? Should we be seeing the regional commander or possibly even higher take responsibility? I'm asking if the top hierarchy of the police service should be taking responsibility for this. Officials like the regional commander or even higher.
Of course. I mean, positions comes with assets and liabilities. Unfortunately, that is not what we see in this part of the world. But really, if accountability exists based on certain principles and a constitutional democracy, we expect that some people in position of responsibility, some people financed by you and I, who exhibit certain inefficiencies, be held to account. Unfortunately, that is not what we see. And to harness the relationship between the civilians and the security services, there needs to be accountability. Ghana currently, I must say, is sharply divided. A lot of people are so frustrated about what is going on. A lot of people feel cheated. And a lot of them also at the same time feel they've been denied justice. And you cannot progress as a country when all of these principles is non-existent. So from the very bottom to the very top, even at the IGP level, okay, if they have to be held accountable, they have to be done. That has to be done, but that can only happen through an unbiased, progressive, effective, and efficient investigation into what happened. Sometimes it becomes a bit of an issue when you ask the police to investigate the police. It's just like you being asked to investigate your mom or your dad. That human element still plays. But as professional as they are, I expect, considering the level of confidence and trust we have bestowed in them, to conduct that investigation in an unbiased fashion. So in the end, we all get to know the truth, and whoever is culpable should be brought to book according to the law. Then confidence would be restored in one way or the other in the security services.
But even at this point, from what we know, Mr. Sani, some argue that it's a failure of the leadership, and so they must be sanctioned immediately.
Well, of course, obviously, like I said, we had some failures at the very top, because when you look at the police structure, it is very command-based, okay? And I have in the past expressed opinions about the lack of efficient training to ensure officers at the very bottom taking certain decisions without recourse to the top. But it's still the old way, you know, the bureaucratic way of doing things. So you would expect that a lot of these actions that happen on the ground comes from the very top, okay? If an impartial investigation is carried out, and I'll suggest that it should go beyond the police, we could even involve officials of the National Intelligence Bureau and even perhaps civil society to look into this. And if in the end it is found that the orders came from above, which shouldn't have been the case, perhaps with respect to exactly what was done on the ground, whoever is found culpable must be dealt with.
Right.
We are a country that is governed by the rule of law. We have procedures and processes to follow. But when we allow this to pass, we might also be succeeding in establishing a very, very dangerous precedence with respect to the culture of impunity. Because a lot more Ghanaians will begin to feel that in Ghana, you can do these things, you can kill and be left off the hook. So obviously, if A did it and was left off the hook, if I also do it, I'll be left off the hook. And
Mr. Sani,
I think that wouldn't be good enough.
We are very, very grateful, Adib Sani, for joining us this morning here on News Desk, and we'll move on from the story currently. Now, the governing party's performance in the 2020 parliamentary election represents a turnaround from the convincing lead won in the 2016 polls. Ahead of the election, the impressive 63-seat majority seemed almost insurmountable. The results, however, tell a different story, as a nearly 40-seat loss nearly sent the governing party back to the minority. The investigative process to discover the reasons for this result is underway. But who should the party, or what should the party look out for? We'll speak shortly to Dr. Amati Brating. He's a political scientist on this development. But first, listen to the chairman of that investigative committee, Osafo Mafu.
The president-elect, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, won with about 500,000 votes, about 500,000. If you are not, you may be aware, President Mills won elections in this country with about 47,000 votes. 47. So 500,000 votes is more than enough. It's 50 plus 1. And 50 plus 500,000 is a very solid victory. And therefore, we have every right to celebrate this victory.
I see. But let's talk about your parliamentarians. A lot of them lost their seats in this year's election. You are leading the committee to investigate. But what has been your findings so far, sir?
Well, so far we realized that there were a lot of internal frictions. A lot of district chief executives, municipal chief executives were undermining parliamentary candidates.
They were undermining parliamentary candidates?
Yes. They were even campaigning against them.
And these are the findings you have gathered so far?
Some of them so far. And therefore, we have a lot to do between the DCs and the parliamentary candidates.
I see. So have you been able to identify these DCs and MCs who perhaps may have undermined the work of the PCs?
Obviously, we have been able to identify some of them.
Like about how many are we talking about here?
But I wouldn't give any numbers now until the investigation is complete.
But for the DCs, would there be any sanction against them? Because I know that the party constitution clearly states that if some individuals work against the interest of the party, there may be some sanction against them. I don't make recommendation to that.
We are dealing with the same party. So if you are a DC or an MC and you campaign against your parliamentary candidate, you have no business to be a DC or MC for the party. Because the candidate is the candidate of the party, and you are DC, MC for the party. So if you undermine your parliamentary candidate, you have no business to be the district chief executive.
So you will sack all of them, that's understand again?
They will definitely have to be thrown out. Definitely. Definitely. Any DC or MC who considered it right to work against his or her parliamentary candidate has no business to represent the party in the district.
Let's talk to Dr. Amati Brating now. He's a political scientist with KNUST. He joins us via Zoom. Doc, first of all, Mr. Osafo Mafu believes that some MMDCEs were responsible for the loss suffered by some parliamentary candidates, and they should be sanctioned. What's your reaction to this?
Let me say good morning and to say good morning to your listeners and to express appreciation for the opportunity to participate in this program. Actually, political parties have a singular agenda. They would like to be in power. And that is the time that, the real political purposes of all the actors in political parties are tested. They are not expected to waver. I mean, the goal is established for all of them. So ordinarily, if they go into elections and some actors of the parties, act in manners that simply doesn't further the interest of the party, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's a very simple thing. They have been exposed. They are not necessarily, people who really, should be considered as members of the party. They have other interests. And so that is it. Such people become so clearly exposed, and you don't have any other alternative than to do, the right thing. Make sure that they are not in your fold. I mean,
but this is a similar stance that was taken, Doctor. This is a similar stance that was taken against the Member of Parliament for Fomena. When he was expelled from the party, his seat was vacated, but he showed that he's still a vital person the party would need if they want the numbers in Fomena and in Parliament. Are we not? Is there a person not shooting itself in the foot?
I think the two scenarios are different. Here, we looking at a situation where the party in the constituency takes a decision concerning who represents them. The Fomena party did not act against the party per se at that time. He didn't get the opportunity to represent the constituency. But then he feels that he is the person that the party in the constituency stands with, and he has demonstrated that, In this other case, people go into general elections, and then you have party actors who, in a way, if you like, act, in a manner that eventually leads to the loss of their own candidates in the general election. The Fomena a candidate contested on his own. And virtually, it is the party people in Fomena that voted for him. So I think the grassroots in Fomena disagreed with the top, members of the party with respect to the decision that they took.
Right, but still, Doctor, with the case of these DCEs, have they not demonstrated that they are influential in their communities, so that if the party should expel them or ostracize them in any way, are we not releasing them to further work against the party?
It's a risk the party will have to take because there should be discipline in such political organizations. Basically, organizations and states become stable when their membership demonstrate commitment, voluntary commitment to the rules and regulations of the organization. Generally speaking, in fact, it's the same thing at the state level. If you want stability in an entity, an organization, a body, even a state, what happens is that the members of the organization demonstrate commitment to the rules and regulations. If they have any issue against any rule, any regulations, these regulations should have room for amendments. So as much as possible, the party will want to rein in, dissenting voices as much as possible. Otherwise, the party will not be secure. The party will not be stable.
Right.
Everybody will be acting the way he or she wants.
Right. Finally, Doctor, it's the opinion of the majority leader, Osei Sabonsu, that the loss that the NPP suffered in the parliamentary election was because of the size of government. So if the president must remedy this matter, he must first of all have a smaller government, and the process of selecting parliamentary candidates by delegates should be looked at.
I'll go with the second suggestion that he comes up with. I think the major challenge the party faced has to do with the process of selecting parliamentary delegates. It's a pity they went that way, because it is this very action after the election of 1954 by the CPP leadership in Accra that led, among other factors, to the formation of the NLM, which eventually became the nemesis of the CPP. And so this very tradition that came out of that particular action should not be seen to be repeating, that practice today. Unfortunately, that is what they chose to do. But then, in respect of the issue relating to the size of government, if it played out in the elections, I would have liked to see the president himself becoming a casualty, other than the parliamentary candidates. I don't think it played out in the constituencies. It should have played out at the national level. So over there, if
I think he was making the point. I think Mr. Chairman Sabons was making the point that
a leaner government. I think the suggestion should come, right straight away from him, and I think that is desirable. But I don't think it's one of the reasons that led to the loss of some of the parliamentary candidates. I don't think so.
Right. I think the point was being made that their attention may have been taken away from their constituencies, which is why they lost their seats. But thank you very much, Dr. Amati Brating, for joining us this morning on News Desk and giving us your perspectives on these issues. You're live on Joy News Desk with me, Daniel Dazid. Our call comes your way next with business. Stay with us.
Hello, welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. Hope you're having a great day so far. We want to bring you the latest from the northern region, where there have been bushfires in some farms. About 300 acres of maize, cowpea and soybean farms belonging to Tibza Farms, one of the largest commercial farms in that region, have been destroyed by bushfire. With the onset of the dry season, more of these bushfires are expected. What's worrying is that these fires are sometimes triggered by activities of hunters. Northern Region correspondent Martina Bugri visited the farm to assess the extent of damage.
It was set for a good harvest after several months of toil and labor and over 600,000 Ghana cedis invested on this farm with the hope of raking in. But that has turned into ashes now. It's an annual ritual each year where thousands of farmlands get burned due to bushfires, threatening the livelihood and food security of many households in the northern region. We are here at Tibza Farms, where several acres of crops were burnt last Saturday. We are here to meet Mr. Sentarum Hammer, CEO of Tibza Farms. Now, we got hint that your farm got burnt. We decided to come to the farm and see how much or the extent of damage. Tell us how much you did and then how much is gone.
Over here at Tibza, we do close to 500 acres of maize and soybean production, as well as pigeon pea and cowpea. Sometime later, last week, we had fires which devastated the whole farms. We looked at, we estimated about 300 acres are gone. We had over 200 people helping us to actually put off the fires from 9:30 in the morning to almost midnight. And unfortunately, the fire overcame us.
He says he was expecting so much after a good yield this year.
We invested close to 700,000 Ghana cedis, about 696,000 Ghana cedis on the whole project. And we expected to bring in a couple of $1 million, Ghana cedis rather, as a result of good harvest. We were set for it, we were ready for it, we did all that we could, and as you could see around, we actually did fire bells around the whole 500 acres of land. But the fire was so intense that we couldn't stop it, but the investment is quite substantial. And for me, it's not just my own investment, but the flow-on effect to the community, because the people that we also support is quite a reasonable number, and the people that actually work here, as I said, every year we have not less than 150 people working on these farms every year. So for me, that is the livelihood of those people who have been cut off.
Farmers who borrow from banks pay up to 30% interest, which makes funding of agriculture a huge challenge. Even with a huge interest, it's still difficult to access loans.
Now, AngloGold Ashanti has partnered the National Board for Small-Scale Industries to create a platform for businesses operating in Obuasi. The initiative is targeted at micro, small, and medium enterprises in the Gold City. Officials say the move is critical to grow local businesses and enhance economic activities in the area. Presopia was at the opening of the 2020 edition of the annual Obuasi Trade Show and has filed this report.
100 exhibitors are taking part in this year's trade show in Obuasi. Organized by the AngloGold Ashanti Ghana Limited, the week-long event is expected to support local businesses to link up with each other to enhance their operations. Senior Manager Sustainability at AngloGold Ashanti, Emmanuel Beidou, spoke to the media at the opening of the 2020 trade show.
We started this 3 years ago, but as part of the social management plan, we have repackaged these interventions to ensure that its relevance is increased, such that participation is enhanced, and then a lot of initiatives that we have brought on board. And this is the first time we have launched a virtual platform across all the social media platforms so people can participate. We're hoping that this will become even big and bigger as we move forward, so that many people in Obuasi will participate, and the real benefit of it will be seen in the lives of the people in Obuasi.
The National Board for Small-Scale Industries, NBSSI, is providing technical support to the participating businesses to take advantage of government opportunities available to MSMEs. Meanwhile, the Obuasi Municipal and Obuasi East District Assemblies are providing logistics and other support to the businesses.
By the end of this program, countless skills in packaging, management, advertisement of best practices, just to mention but few, will boost the economy of Obuasi and Adasimai as a whole. Diversifying the economy is thought-provoking and cannot be demonstrated at a better time than now.
Prince Apia reporting.
And that's your business update for now. The news continues after this break.
Let's do some sports on News Desk. And with all outstanding matches in the Ghana Premier League cleared heading into the new year, Secretary General of the Ghana Football Association says the FA is ready to continue to build what he described as a competitive league.
The coaches will tell you, the players will tell you, it's being killing fought for. We are not at 100% yet. Into continuous improvement. Every time we'll strive to improve. Until you can see the progressions. Even the players are improving, the coaches, everybody in the game are very keen. After match day 6, you can see we are in for a really good season, a very competitive season. So be ready for on the 1st of January 2021, where we kick in with the match day 7 matches, and then we'll move on from there to the end. So I can only say so far so good, but like our teachers say, there's room for improvement.
Now, the former vice president of the Ghana Football Association, George Afriy, wants the leadership of the football governing body to give Black Stars coach C.K. Akono the support to succeed. According to him, some actions of the association portrays zero support for the former Asante Kotoko coach.
CK Akono was hired to replace Kwesi Appiah following the decision of the Executive Council to dissolve the technical teams of all national teams. The former Asante Kotoko head coach has had 50% success in his career as the technical head of the senior national team. Many have alleged that the leadership of the Ghana Football Association is forcing players on the former House of Oak Gaffer. Former Vice President of the Ghana Football Association, George Afriy, who also doubled as Black Stars Management Committee Chairman, have called on the Ghana Football Association to give him the free hand and support to work.
I was happy when CK Akono was appointed. Because then another Ghanaian coach takes over from Kwesi Appiah. That was a good thing. It's a plus. Of course, it means that we are trying to help one of our own. I had the chance to travel with CK Akono when Kotoko played Zesco United. The night after the game, I sat in the dining room with him. I had then done my own analysis of the Kotoko team that plays Zesco. So I sat with him, and trust me, everything that I believe and everything that I had put together about the Kotoko team, the coach was thinking the same. So when I came back, I granted an interview at Kotoka International Airport, and I said that CK must be given the chance to continue his job because he was doing a very good job. Now, unfortunately, he was appointed the Black Star coach, somebody who deputized for Kwesi Appiah. And so what I want to tell the FA, that they should leave the man to work. Honestly, everybody knows that Ted had a chance to work with CK. At a point, he was even managing him. So if, fortunately, one of his own has been appointed as the head coach of the Black Stars, we need to give him all the needed support. You see, you cannot send somebody out there to go and perform a duty and you expect him to do well or you expect him to bring you the results. If you don't give him the needed support, what we'll do for a white man, let's do it for one of our own.
Now, the Secretary General of the Ghana Athletics Association, Bawa Fuseni, has described 2020 as a difficult year for athletics, but is hopeful for a better 2021.
The year has been challenging, most especially because of this COVID-19 case. We're not able to do a lot of our programs, and the year started good. We had few sponsorship, and we were able to do our first competition at the Sipon Sports Stadium. We're planning to continue with our programs within the year, but COVID came and we had to abide by government rules and regulations in terms of COVID protocols. And thankfully, the year is also ending well because we've started a lot of courses. Currently, there's one ongoing course at Damongo to train the newly created regions, coaches in all the new created regions. So I would say it was an interesting year. The beginning was good. The middle and the larger part of the year wasn't too good, but the ending looked very good too. So it's a mixed year, ending good, starting good, but the larger part of it wasn't too good.